this. Now today I am going to begin a new chapter. The programming we shall be continuing, right? Parallelly, we have to have the new concepts, right? You will be having one program in section C of part 2, right? Too simple. No calculation, no computation, no comparisons. Absolutely no programming. You need to know the concept of inheritance. Concept of inheritance. In ISC, in part 2, section C, one program will be there that will fetch you 5 marks. A very simple concept is this. Okay, now I am going to introduce this topic. What is inheritance? What is inheritance? What is the definition of inheritance? What is the need of the inheritance? Then what are the features or advantages of inheritance? Right? And different types of inheritance. Different types of inheritance. And what are the components of inheritance? Right? Which I am going to deal today. Right? As far as possible, I will finish explaining. I will give the lecture on inheritance. If time permits, we shall make an attempt to write a program on inheritance. Right? Yeah, here I go. What is inheritance? Inheritance is one of the concepts of your own object-oriented programming. What is the inheritance is? The major advantage of inheritance is reusability of a code. What do you mean by code? A program. I have written a program way back in 3 months ago. Today I have come to a situation, the same program I need to write. For that I need not to rewrite the program. Right? Type the program, execute the program and get the output. Instead, what you can do is a class which derives, right? Or a class to take the properties from another class is known as inheritance. What is the advantage? The advantage is quite simple. The advantage is, what the advantage is, you can save time, programming time. Okay, you need not deep in the program once you write. If you write the program, debug it, compile it, debug it, if it gives the output, whenever and wherever is required, that can be inherited. This concept is known as inheritance. It's one of the 5 qualities of object-oriented programming. Object-oriented programming. Is this clear? Now, if you see the chapter concepts of inheritance, here I go. This chapter talks about inheritance, the capability of one class derive the properties from the another class is known as inheritance. The most important advantage of inheritance is reusability of code. What do you mean by that? I have written a program, right? At some point in time. Now the situation has come, the same programming situation has come. I need not to rewrite the program. Instead, the properties which have been done, that can be inherited. Okay? That is what the major advantage of your inheritance. Once a base class is derived and debugged, it can be used in various situations without having to redefine it or rewrite it. Already, a tested and saved previous programs can be reused. reusing the existing code, reusing the program, okay, reusing a program which saves the time, which saves the programming time is very, very expensive, right? The programmers are, it's a very lucrative job. So programming time, okay, which is once if you start writing the program, you are paid well. So once if you write the program, that need not be rewritten. So you can save the time, you can save the programming money and the efforts, which increases the program's reliability. I write a program, it's not a standalone program. I write a program, I compile it, I get the output. Simple. What happens is, I write this program, the properties of this program can be given to other classes. This concept is known as inheritance, right? Now, what is the need of the inheritance? Does it really help? Yes, it does. It does help. One major reason behind this capability to express the inheritance relations within, which ensures the closeness within the real world entities or real world models. What do you mean by that? The concept of the real world, this programming paradigm, the real latest trend of the programming, where, okay, because the OOP can be used. As I told you, this is one of the concepts of your object-oriented programming is called what? Inheritance. The next reason is, as I told you before, inheritance allows the addition of the another reason to idea of reusability. The idea of reusability. And the third one is the inheritance is transitive in nature. For example, class A is the superclass or base class, class A. Every class will have two quantities. All of you know, data members and member functions, right? This will have two components, data members and member functions. This also will have data members and member functions. This also will have data members and member functions. One who gives is called a superclass or base class. One who receives, B receives from A, then B is known as a subclass or a derived class. A subclass or derived class. For instance, look at this board. Class B receive the property from class A. So this is called as a subclass or derived class. One who gives is known as superclass or base class. B receives from A and C receives from A. C is a subclass which inherits a property from B. Then may I call C is a subclass of A, S. This concept is known as transitive in nature. Transitive, right? The three advantages are there. Okay, which is closer to the real world model. Number two, reusability of the code. And number three is known as what? Transitive in nature. Now, I am going to teach you a variety of what are the different forms or different types of inheritance in there. Right? The first one is called as single inheritance. First one is called as single inheritance. The next one is called as multiple inheritance. Multiple inheritance. And the third one is called as hierarchical inheritance. Fourth one is called as multi-level. And the fifth one is called as hybrid. I'm going to tell you, you need to know different forms of inheritance. You need to know boys and girls. But for all the practical purposes in your syllabus, you will be learning only the single inheritance. Class B is derived from class B takes the properties from class A. This is superclass, this is subclass. Otherwise, this can be called as a base class, this can be called as a derived class. Right? Now, what do you mean by single inheritance? Quite simple. Quite simple. For instance, you have a class called as X. As I told you, every class will have data members and member functions. The data members if you want, that can be inherited. Y class, besides its own, it can get data members and member functions from class X. I repeat again, boys and girls, every class will have two components that you are pretty familiar. First one is called as what? Data members. Second one is called as member functions. Right? So, if required, class Y can bring the data members. If need may be, we can bring the member functions. So this is called as class Y. Properties are inherited from class X. This is called as single inheritance. One class given to another class, that's it. This is called as single inheritance. What do you mean by multiple inheritance? Multiple inheritance goes like this. Multiple inheritance, let's say this is class X, this is class Y, and this is class Z. X and Y are the super classes or base classes. Class Y, class Z inherits the properties from class X or class Y. It can inherit from class X and class Y, whatever may be the desired output. Right? It can bring from multi-source, multiple classes. Class Z gets the property from Y and X. So this is called as multiple inheritance. Multiple inheritance. Now let me tell you what do you mean by hierarchy? Hierarchy means there is an order. An order possibly from highest to lowest, descending we call. Right? Here I tell you what do you mean by hierarchical inheritance. The hierarchical inheritance goes like this. Just the opposite of this. Let me say that I have a class called as P. I have a class called as P. Right? There are three subclasses are there. Which are Q, R, S. In this case, what happens is Q, R, S are the subclasses or derived classes. They inherit a property from class P, class Q, and class S. This concept is known as hierarchy. First it gives to Q. The Q gives to R. The R gets from P. Then S gets from P. So this concept is known as hierarchical inheritance. Now, let me tell you, the next one is called as multi-level. here itself you can see. This is a multi-level. Multi-level C inherits from B. B inherits from A. Do you have much more than 2 levels? If it is much more than 2 levels, if inheritance takes place, then this concept is known as multi-level inheritance. What do you mean by hybrid? Now, the superclass need not to be 1. In this case, superclass is 1. In case of superclass is 1, you have multiple levels. Hybrid means there could be one superclass, there could be multiple superclasses. Right? That one superclass given to maybe 5 subclasses, or 5 superclasses can give to one subclass. It can be any form, right? There is no particular fixed form. This is known as hybrid inheritance. Should I draw the diagram for that? Yeah. D is a subclass which receives from here. Right? D is a subclass, right? Which can receive from A, which can receive from B, which can receive from C. Similarly, D can give it to whom? E and F. E and F. Right? This is known as multi-hybrid. This is multi-level. This is the inheritance. It's called as hybrid inheritance. Please note, D is a derived class or subclass which receives the properties from A, B and C. In turn, D gives to E and F. This concept is known as hybrid inheritance. What is this one is called as? This one is called as multi-level. C receives from B, B in turn receives from A. This one is known as multi-level. This is fourth example. This one is called as hierarchical inheritance. Right? Hierarchical inheritance. Multiple inheritance means Z receives from not from properties from one, instead it is from both X and Y. Right? Single inheritance means the source of properties being shared is only one. That's why it's called as single inheritance. I think we will be able to do that straight away the programming. Boys and girls, today I am going to demonstrate the concept of inheritance by writing a very, very simple program. Whenever you do the inheritance, we the examiners, one who corrects your paper, will look for 2 things. If you know this concept, even if you make some minor mistakes, that can be overlooked. Whenever there is a concept of inheritance, 2 keywords are there. You got to use these 2 keywords. Then they will understand that the concept has gone into your head. Look at here. What I do is, I'll diagram this one. Now, let me tell you what it is. I have 2 classes. This is the class number 1. This is base class. This is the base class. And this is called as derived class. Right? Now what I do is, class, second class, it is a subclass. What do I do here is, I not only use the data members and member functions now, but also I inherit the class, the member function and the data members from big. That is what this program is. What do I do it? Look at here. Please note, this is a base class. What does it say? I have a variable called as ID. I have a method called as identify. Data member and member function. Only one each. Simple. What does it? I suppose I am a super class. The string, that's it. I store your string, that's it. What do I do in identify? This is from superclass. Just one string, that's all. I store one string and I print one string. Right? Now, what do I do? These two, ID and identify, both I am not using in base. If you look at here, no output will come in this class. Right? I am going to use this ID, I am going to use this identify in some other class. That's what the purpose is. Yeah. Have a close look. This is very, very crucial, boys and girls. As you have class big, here is also class small. What do I do? I use a keyword, extends, E-X-T-E-N-D-S, extends, big. You know what does it mean? This allows, this is the gap between, bridging the gap between the two classes. This is a class big, this is class small. Okay, give and takes, there is a wide gap. Who bridges this gap? A keyword called as extends. What keyword is that? Extends. What does it do? It, whatever the data members and member functions, that will be brought here. That will be brought here. That is what the big is. So the crucial in your derived class or in your subclass, you have to have a keyword called as extends. What does it do? It extends from where? From big. Clear? What do I do? Here also, deliberately I am using it. I am going to use some other variable. Here I am going to use A, here I am going to use B. Deliberately I am doing it. The reason being is, which ID is being used? Is it from the subclass or is from the superclass? Now I am going to write even the estimated output also. What would be the output of this program? That also I am going to tell you. Right? Here, have a look. Here also I declare a variable called as ID as I did here. Right? This is separate class and this is separate class. Right? ID. I am from a subclass. Here also I have a method called as identify. Please note, boys and girls, please note, this is the second class, this is the first class. The first class is known as big, it has got one data member, one member function. ID and identify, that's it. In second class, which is called as small, I have two methods and one data member. One data member is ID. There are two methods are there. Identify and test. Identify and test. Now, besides these two member functions, besides this ID, I can bring this identify here, I can bring this ID here, besides this. Right? Now what I do is, extends means, now this class and this class will be bridged. Gapping the bridging between the big and small. Right. Here I have two methods, identify and test. What do I have? A variable data number called as ID. Right. What do I do? Please note. What the idea is, I am from the subclass. What do I do it from? System.out.println, this is from subclass. Right? So this is one method, this is another method, and this is third method. First method, second method, third method, they are up in two different places. Now I am going to write the output. Imagine this your monitor. What do I do? System.out.println ID. Which one will come? You are using in the class called as small. Do you have a variable called as ID? Yes. You have a variable called as ID. What will come? This is what is the ID? What is the ID? What is the ID stores here? I am a subclass. I am a. First of all, this will print. I am a subclass. Come down. Identify. From here it goes here. Identify means you don't go here because it's from a different class. Identify means the local method. The two concepts are there. One is called as local and one is called as global. Whenever I say ID means I local variable which is ID. What do I do? I invoke. I call a function called as identify. What will come? What does identify as what? It will display this is from subclass. This is from Apples. What do I do? System.out.println ID. Please note, I use a dot operator. Before that, I use a keyword called as super. So, when I use a super, what does it do? The variable ID of the local class will not come. What has been inherited from the base class. So, what happens is, this ID and this method will be brought here. Class small inherits from where? Big. What does it do? Super.id means the ID of superclass. In this context, what the superclass is? I am a superclass. I am a there. Identify. Just this one given between this and this is. Identify means the local function it was given. When I say super.identify means you have a method called as identify that will come from superclass. Again, dot operator. Super means which fetches the method from where? From superclass. What is superclass is here? Big. What does it do? Identify. What is the identify is? This is from superclass. This is from do you understand what it means? What is to be noted is here. If you see whole of class 11 till the previous class, you and I had the habit of writing only one classes. Now you are standard as one up. You write two different classes and bridge the gap between both the classes. Right? Here I have a class called as big and another class called as small. Right? To bridge these two, you have to use a keyword called as extends in the declaration, class declaration itself. The present class was small, which extends from big means besides its own data members and member functions, it is going to get from big. That is the meaning. And this is what is the new keyword here I have used? Extends. What is the more keyword I have used? Super. I am using a dot operator. What does it do is it fetches ID of super. It fetches the member function called as identify from super. Do you understand? Do you understand? So if you drive in the program, what does it do? It prints ID of this local one, and identify ID of local variable, identify of local member function, and it prints the ID of super.id means from super class ID will be brought. What does it store? I am a super class. I am a super class. Identify from super class means this method will be fetched and that will get executed. I am invoking two methods, identify. One is this identify from the local, this is from base class or super class, right? What keyword did I use them? Two keywords. One is called as extends and one is called as super dot. Whenever I use the super dot means it doesn't fetch from the local class, instead it inherits from the base class. This is called as a simple example of single inheritance. Single inheritance. Boys and girls, this does not have any calculation, no computation, no formula, no stereotype. But you need to know this. The examiners are looking for these two keywords. That's all. Right? For example, I have two variables, A and B. You inherit them, find their addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and print them. Simple. Right? Next class, I am going to teach you override and overflow. There are two keywords, two concepts are there. I will be teaching. Let me recapitulate what has been done today, boys and girls. I am going to do parallelly the simple programming as well as we need to know our syllabus also. Syllabus means you need to know the concept of what do you call inheritance. You need to know the concept of recursion. You need to know the simple data structures. Okay, and programming is also there. Here also we can implement some programming. So what you need to know is one who derives this class derives from here. So this is called a subclass or derived class. One who gives is called a superclass or base class. Done? Now, in coming classes, I will be doing few more examples, both the programs, okay, possibly from the ISA. Right? Please go through chapter number. Kindly go through chapter number 12, which is known as concept of inheritance, page number 471. Right? Now, following class, I will be doing two programs. Both are ISC questions. Right? Both the programs of single inheritance. Right? Boys and girls, kindly go through the 12th chapter, page number 471, right? And go through the definitions, right? Following class, I will be doing two programs. Till then, take care and bye-bye.